I've got a new band of 5 men and me, and I'm just singing, not playing guitar this time, because I wanted to concentrate more on singing and was feeling tied down, not just physically, because you have to stand in one position for the microphone, but it's such a weight that you can't breathe properly, and because I've been learning more about breathing and how you need it as a support for the whole voice, I wanted to experiment with that. And I just found I can sing so much better without it. So that was the starting point for knowing I wanted to change the band, because I thought if I'm going to have to go into getting guitar players, I might as well just do exactly what I want to do, not try and keep it as it had been. But I think already I got so exhausted of that lineup as it was anyway, guitar, bass and drums, and felt very limited by it. When I came to writing this new album, I knew that I didn't want to place any limitations on myself in the writing stage of it. So I formed this new band basically in a way so that all of the instruments that are on the new album can be performed live, so it needed to be quite big. So I've ended up with Eric Drew Feldman on keyboards. He's from San Francisco. He's played with Beefheart in the late 60s. Most recently he's been playing with Frank Black. I was put in touch with him, or actually he got in touch with me because he knew Joe Gore, who's one of my guitar players from San Francisco. Eric heard that I was looking for a keyboard player and got in touch with me. I was working with Joe because I'd met him, first of all, when I was doing an interview with him for Guitar Player magazine, and really enjoyed talking to him, so I knew I liked him as a person. And then later on found out that he had played on a lot of my favourite records, a lot of Tom Waits things. So then I asked him if he was interested, and he was. I'm also playing with a guy called John Parrish, and between myself and John Parrish, we played most of the instruments on the album, sort of building things up layer by layer, because we're both multi-instrumentalists. But I'd worked with John, and I've known him for years. I worked with him in a band called Automatic Lamini for about 2 years when I was 18, and enjoy working with him, so knew he was straight away someone I'd want in the band. He's playing guitar. I've got a French drummer called Jean-Marc Bouty, who was a friend, first of all, and hasn't really played with many bands before. And I've got a keyboard player called Nick Bagnall, who played with the Fatima Mansions before. That's all, as far as I know. But like I said, not all of those musicians played on the record. It was mostly just myself and John Parrish, although Joe Gore did play a little bit, because we're recording the album layer by layer, something I haven't done before, and knew I wanted to play a large amount of the instruments myself anyway. Well, Maria Mocknash and I, who I've worked with on all the videos, we did spend a lot of time talking about the right atmosphere to create with this video, because it could very easily have, because of the nature of the song, it could have slipped into the kind of trying to be vampy, spooky for the sake of it, or trying to get that kind of spookiness, isn't this scary angle on it, and we wanted to stay away from that. I think that the look that we came up with in the end for the video really takes away from that side of it. It's very, very simple kind of setup, but what is so striking then is the makeup and the costume. And I mean, I hope it works for other people, but for me it does work now that it's not trying to be spooky, it's not trying to be funny, it's somewhere sort of in between, where it actually ends up saying nothing at all, so it's kind of just left for people to make up their own minds about it. That's how I feel about it anyway. But also just to come up with a really strong but simple image. It wasn't, I mean, again, like in all the videos that I've worked with Maria, there's been no choreography, although people maybe have we thought of specific moves for specific times. I think it's just because of me feeling very natural working with her, because she is such a good friend, we know each other so well. I feel completely free to try out anything, and she's always filming, so whatever I try out at the time gets used, and rather than setting specific moves for certain times in the song. She's very good at editing as well, I think, to incorporate the interesting bits that I do in the right places with the music. Down by the Water for me is a song I didn't want to put a label on too much, like this isn't a song about some woman drowning her baby, or to be quite honest, I don't really know what it is for me myself yet, which I don't mind, because I'd much rather kind of leave it for other people to do what they want with anyway, which is, again, brings me back to the video of wanting to stay away from trying to imply any kind of storyline to go with the song, but just do a performance of it, and in a way that is really not suggestive of evilness or madness or too over the top in a humorous sort of way. I just wanted it to be very straight ahead, not really saying anything. I'd say for this record, for To Bring You My Love, the way I went about writing the songs and the way I went about recording the songs was all based on atmosphere and feeling more than anything, and more than anything I've ever done before, any songs I've ever written before. The starting point for a lot of the songs would be knowing a feeling that I wanted to try and create through music, and that came before anything like the way the song would be structured or the lyrical content. It was much more the music and the feeling that I'd get off of that, and then work from there. And so recording this record was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, I think, let alone the hardest record I've ever made, because it was so much having to delve into getting into the right frame of mind to create that atmosphere that was specific to each song and varied with each song. And it's just a very difficult thing to do, very emotionally draining as well. I suppose I've always been very attracted to anything Spanish, like the climate, the way the people look, the flamenco dancing, the costume. I've always had a real love of Spain and of its music, and I do listen to a lot of Spanish music, so it was probably inevitable that was going to start coming into what I was doing. I think I just find so much passion in their music and in their dance, but passion in a very, very strong way, although it can be really melancholic as well, but it's got such a strength to it, which is what appeals to me. I think probably the whole of this new record has a lot more hope in it in some ways. Although it goes through a lot of emotions and feelings of being left and of still needing something more, it's still kind of, yes, but that hope is still there for something. It's more positive. It's done in a much more positive frame of mind, I think. Well, I know I was in a more positive frame of mind when I wrote it, and it just sounds like that to me, and it sounds like I'm a few years older, and it just sounds like what I am now, which is all round happier and more in control Polly Harvey. All of the songs written for the new album were done in a very short space of time, and I did them all in a sort of 3-month block, and it was only just over a year ago. So I think that I had other songs around before then, but they were discarded before I got to writing for this album. And I sort of set myself that target as well to write this album in that short framework, and because I wanted to try that to see if the songs would then have a similar thread running through them, similar emotions, and I wanted to see if then the finished body of work would kind of tie in with each other, which I think is what has happened as well. I think this album, more than any of the others, it's sort of, each song needs each other, it needs the support of the other songs, and they sort of make sense to me so much more when they're together as a whole. They still work if you take songs out, but they make complete sense when they're all together, I think, and the different emotions that are explored run through each other. And I spent a long time sequencing the album to get it right. There are a lot of songs that of my favourite songs that didn't make it on the album just because they didn't fit into the framework in a good way, so they had to be left off, because I think I wrote 20 songs in all, out of which I knew I just wanted to do a 10-song album. From timing wise, I think I think albums are just made too long these days. I wanted to do a short one. Teclo is somebody's name. I don't know whose. I can tell you the source material for that was from the theme music for the Guns from San Sebastian. I've got a record at home, Ennio Morricone, and there's a song on there called Teclo's Death, and I thought, that sounds interesting, and it's just percussion, there's nothing else, there's no instruments, and I just found it very sort of intriguing as a title, and after I listened to that album, it kind of sparked off so many ideas around that song for me that's what kind of went on to writing the music for Teclo. I'd respected Flood as a producer for quite a long time, mostly through the records that he had done with Nick Cave, and also from what he'd been doing with U2, and just really admiring the sounds on those records, and really admiring the atmosphere on some of those Bad Seeds records as well. It seemed to be so balanced on a knife edge of complete collapse, but still being in control, and so much space in them. So I knew I liked what he did. It was just a matter of meeting him, and then after meeting him for the first time and realising what a wonderful person he is and how relaxed I felt with him, and just how sensitive he is to the recording process and how draining it can be. I just knew he was the right person to work with. Yeah, I just knew that he was right for these songs because of that, because from hearing what he'd done on record and after meeting him, I knew he had the ability to stand off, to let a song breathe, to give it silence, to give it space. He just had that capacity in him, which not a lot of people do. I get an enormous amount of enjoyment from playing live, and for me it's a real release from when you haven't been, like I haven't been, when you haven't been playing for a long time, you kind of, sometimes you think, well, what am I doing? I forgot, what do I do? And then as soon as you start playing again, you remember, yes, I'm a musician, and this is why I'm doing it, because I need to, because of the release, because of how it makes me feel afterwards, and during the performance. It's just incredibly satisfying and nourishing. It's quite a good word, I think. So I need it very much, and a big stress release for me as well, because I do get really kind of wound up with everything that's going on all the time, and then if you can do that at night, it's just like, you can sleep after that.